Hi there, welcome back to the channel. So today we've got our very first mock draft. That's going to be, on the on the upcoming 2025 NHL draft. Obviously, we just had the lottery results, and with the New York Islanders winning the lottery after having like a 3% chance, and also the Utah Mammoth now, newly announced, moving up to pick number 4. We've got so much to discuss on, what the possible options are here for these teams and who they might select in come June. So without further ado, let's go right into it, and we're going to start from the top, the New York Islanders. So the New York Islanders, they move up. I think they had like the 10th best odds to win. Really just crazy stuff. And they're a team that's, hard to really gauge right now. What's their plans? Are they gonna retool? Are they gonna rebuild? Or are they gonna just go right out and try and load up just to go right back into it next year and try to contend for the playoffs? So they've got a lot of options. They could go a couple different ways with this. Matthew Schaefer, I talked about in my top 10 prospects video just a video ago, is the consensus number 1 pick right now. He's a left shot defenseman. They could also go Michael Misa, who is widely regarded as the best forward in this draft. But I think they go a different way. I think the New York Islanders select center James Higgins. I think they go James Higgins because of a simple answer. He's from Long Island. He grew up there as an Islanders fan. That's his home. And you might be thinking that's kind of a stupid reason to, select a prospect if he's, a tier below. And I agree with you. I think you select the best player as long as they're, you do your background checks, you make sure they're a good person, you make sure that they, that they are cut out to be in this position. But I think the New York Islanders, I think they look at the John Tavares situation, him being from Canada, him being from Toronto, and they say they have a chance here to create something new, to begin anew, and to create a new chapter in their organization. And I think they want to learn from something. At least in their minds, they think that maybe it might have been a mistake. So they want to get someone who wants to be an Islander for life. And James Higgins, it's not like he's some slouch. James Higgins, in my opinion, is at least top 5 prospect in this draft. So I think that the New York Islanders stun everybody. They don't pick Matthew Schaefer. They don't pick Michael Misa. They go with James Higgins. Moving on to the number 2 selection, the San Jose Sharks. I think that allows them, and I think they're very happy about it, I think that allows them to take Matthew Schaefer. I think that was the person they were going to pick if they were in the number 1 spot. And so I think they go with Matthew Schaefer, and they're very happy about it. They run up to they don't, right? Because the draft is not the usual format this year. But yeah, so they get their guy, and that allows number 3 spot to be for the Chicago Blackhawks. I think they are very happy that he's still available, Michael Misa. Now, Misa is, again, widely regarded as the number 1 forward prospect in this year's draft. He can play center or left wing. And I think that the Hawks, they've made sure that their defense is very rounded out. It's very strong. It's very deep. And I think that this draft they're going to go forward. And what better forward to get than Michael Misa? But yeah, so I think that both the Sharks and the Hawks will be very happy that the New York Islanders, if they end up selecting James Higgins, and they get the guys that they very likely want. Moving on to the Utah Mammoth, with their first pick as, now the Mammoth. They were Utah for last draft, but now they are the Mammoth. And I think that they go with a center. The reason I think they go with a center is that, you've got Logan Cooley, and you've got a ton of wings. You've got Keller, you've got Michelli, you've got Schmaltz, you've got Tija Ginla now, and you've got defense. I forget who they've picked recently, but they've got defensemen there in their prospect pool as well. They now have Sergachev, obviously. So I think that maybe the biggest gap in their lineup would be like a second line center spot. And I think that Caleb Desnoyers, or I might be actually mispronouncing it, it might be Desnoyers. I think that he is one of the best centers in this draft, and I think that he fits the kind of profile that they're looking for, someone who can play a two-way game. And Desnoyers, he's rising up, draft boards very, very quickly. So I think that the Utah Mammoth would be very happy to select center Caleb Desnoyers. Moving on to the Nashville Predators, I have them selecting a center as well. I think they select Jake O'Brien. Now, Jake O'Brien, he might, some might consider it maybe a little bit of a reach for him to go as high as fifth overall. But he's been another player, just like Desnoyers, who has been rising up rankings, very, very quickly. He plays a very physical game. I think he plays the kind of game that Nashville embodies, which is, defensively responsible. They're a very defense-first kind of team, but they need centers. I think we saw that this year as they went out and got wings. But the thing that they needed the most was centers. Their number one center, Ryan O'Reilly, is probably more suited for like a third line center role nowadays. So if they can get, if they can land someone who ends up becoming the number one center for the future, I think that that's exactly what they're looking for, and they would be very happy with that. Moving on to number 6 overall, I have the Philadelphia Flyers taking Anton Frondel. So he is the number one European-rated skater in this draft. Anton Frondel, he can play center, he can play wing. He is a sneaky, underrated player for me personally. I think he is fantastic. If the Blackhawks don't end up taking Misa, I'd probably want them to take Frondel. I'm really high on his game. And in this mock draft, I have the Flyers high on his game as well. The Flyers, they take a center last draft as well. And they have Michkov. They took Oliver Bonk last year. They got a defenseman. So they could go defense in this pick. I could definitely see that. But I think that to them, probably Frondel being here, you have a chance to grab a really premier top 6 threat. And Frondel, if he ends up being a center, he could be a number 1 center. If he ends up being a wing, I think he's on that first line eventually. So I think they go with Frondel here, and I think they're very happy that they can have a future combo threat of Frondel, Konechny, and Michkov. I think that would be very dangerous for the future. Moving up to number 7, I have the Boston Bruins selecting center Roger McQueen. So what do we know about McQueen? Well, we know that he's very big, and he's a player that also I'm sure that lots of different teams are probably torn on him. There's some teams who probably have him way lower on their rankings, and there's some teams that have him probably very high. And I'm guessing that the Boston Bruins have him very high. I think that he's got the build to be a Boston Bruin. When you think of Bruins, you think big and mean. I think McQueen can be that. He definitely needs to up his mean game, but you can't teach size, is what they always say. So I think McQueen, I think the Bruins, they look at it and it's like they have they were able to, after a very disappointing season, they were able to shed some of their players and kind of get a higher draft pick. So I think they look at it as an opportunity to get someone who, McQueen has a low floor but a very high ceiling. So if that pans out and they can develop him properly, McQueen could be their number 1 center for the future, and kind of that's a spot they're looking to upgrade right after the loss of Bergeron. So yeah, I think that they'll go with Roger McQueen there at number 7. Moving on to number 8, the Seattle Kraken will be selecting at 8 here, and I can't believe he's still available here, but I have them selecting Porter Martone. Porter Martone, he's a guy who a lot of people would not have in their own mock drafts, not having go outside of the top 5, probably somewhere in the 3, 4, 5 range. And he's certainly, his profile certainly fits that. He probably should go that high. But, with mock drafts, I think a lot of people just look at the skill, but they forget that in the real drafts, lots of surprises happen, and it never goes how we think it's going to go. And I think Porter Martone, I think he falls a little bit just because of other certain teams' needs. But I think the Kraken, metaphorically, they run up to the stage and they grab Porter Martone because I think he's what they're looking for. They've got their 1 and 2 center punch at center. They've got Shane Wright. They've got who's the guy they selected last year? He was a young guy from, oh my God, I'm forgetting here. But I think they've got their centers kind of figured out here. You've got Matty Beniers. Matty Beniers is probably their number 1 center of the future. Shane Wright, probably that number 2 center. So I think that they're not going to go center here. They could go defense for sure. But they've got Riker Evans on the back, and I think that they're trying to build that offense. So I think that with Porter Martone still being available, I think they grab him, who definitely adds a physical element to their lineup. And if it all pans out and he's developed properly, he really could be a Kachuk-like player, kind of your power forward. So I think they'd be very happy to take Martone here at 8. At number 9, the Buffalo Sabres here at number 9. And, with the Buffalo Sabres, a lot of people are rightly having the discussion, how many times are they going to pick in the top 10 here, right? I don't mean to crap on Sabres fans at all. I'm actually I root for the Sabres in a sense because they're the ultimate underdogs. I want them to succeed, but they gotta start improving, or they're gonna continue to draft in the top 10 here. But I think there's also some fans who are hoping they trade this pick because they don't really care about the picks anymore. They want to be good now, and if they can trade this pick to get someone who can come in now and be real help, I think they definitely prefer that. But if in this mock draft, if they're still drafting at number 9, I have them taking Radim Murtka, who I talked about also in the top 10 prospects video, and he is according to a lot of scouts, to most scouts, he's the number 1 right shot defenseman in this year's draft. He's very big, and if the Buffalo Sabres are indeed picking here, I think they're going to want a guy for their back end. They've got too many forward prospects, and I think they see that if they end up keeping Byram, and they've got Dahlin, Byram, Power on their left side, and they've only got Samuelson on their right side, Matthias Samuelson. So I think they're going to want some size there and some defense. So I have them going Radim Murtka and are probably very, very, very pleased with him being there. Moving on to number 10, we have the Anaheim Ducks at number 10, and the Ducks are an interesting team to kind of try and mock here because they've got everything already. They've got so many defensemen. I think that if Radim Murtka was available here, I think they would have taken him because maybe they could fill out their right side defense a little bit more. But since I have him going to the Sabres, they could go so many options here. I don't think they're going to go center. They've got enough centers. You've got Leo Carlson, you've got Mason McTavish, you've got other players who can, play center if they have to. And I don't know if the centers that are still available are high enough in their rankings for them to even justify it if they decide to go that way. So I have them taking a forward here, a wing, and I have them taking Victor Eklund. Now, I think that he, based on just the available players left on the board and how high he may be up in certain teams' rankings, I think Victor Ekland's probably the next best player available as a forward, and him being a winger, I think he can he'll have a spot eventually on the team. It'll obviously probably be a little bit before he's on that team, but they're hoping that they'll be in playoffs by the time that he's available to come on their team. Victor Ekland, a fantastic top 6 addition if they end up picking him there. At number 11, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think that they could also go a number of ways here. The Pittsburgh Penguins, their prospect pool is pretty bare. It's gotten a little bit better in the past year or two with Kyle Dubas there trying to kind of fill up the cupboard again. But they could go so many ways. I think it comes down to who's, in their opinion, the best player available. I think they go Jackson Smith, left shot defenseman. He's probably, I guess that some people would have him over Radim Murtka in terms of the next best defenseman after Matthew Schaefer. And so I think that they'd be very happy if Jackson Smith was still available here. And they can kind of balance out a little bit of their prospect pool. I think they've got a couple forwards in there, and to add Jackson Smith there, who can absolutely be a top 4 defenseman in the future, that would be a fantastic addition for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we only have 5 more draft picks to go over. I'm only doing the top 16 for this first mock draft 1.0. But then moving on to the New York Rangers, I also have them selecting a defenseman. We saw how volatile their defense was this year and how it probably was their weakest link that led to them ultimately missing the playoffs. So I think that they're going to want to prioritize that. So the New York Rangers, I have them selecting Logan Hensler, a right shot defenseman. So Logan Hensler, I think he's probably the next best defenseman available. He's, your right shot, so it's a little harder to, get those right shot defensemen because they're just a little bit rarer than left shot defensemen. He's 6'2". He has the ability to shut down, opponents. But I think that just rankings wise, I think some teams will probably have him all over the board. So he'll have the ability maybe to drop to 12th. But that's where I have the Rangers going is Logan Hensler. I think that he would be a fine addition to, they grabbed Gabe Perreault recently, and now they get a defenseman who can definitely be a top 4 addition on their team. On to number 13, the Detroit Red Wings will be picking here. And I think I have another defenseman going here. I think there will be probably a bit of a run. Once Jackson Smith gets taken at number 11, I think that, the next 2 teams in the Rangers and Red Wings, I think they'll want to take their defenseman because I think that's what they'll be targeting. I think that's the position that they'll be targeting. And so I have the Red Wings targeting Blake Fiddler. The Red Wings are a team that they've got forwards, they've got goalies, they've got too many goalies. It would take a little bit for me to name every single goalie that's in their system. They've got veteran goalies, they've got young goalies. So I don't think they'll be picking a goalie here. And for offense, we saw their offense be very good this season. It's clicking. They've got people still coming up on offense at the forward position. So I think they go defenseman. It's definitely something that they need to develop more. They've got a couple people back there, obviously, in Mo Seider, Simone Edvinsson. But I think they should grab another one because it's besides those 2, there's no youth there on the back end. So I have them selecting Blake Fiddler, a right shot defenseman. What's there to say about Fiddler? He's very big. He's 6'4", 209 pounds. I think that he's got a very high floor. His ceiling, a little up in the air about, but the Red Wings, they need to hit, right? They need their prospects to hit. They need them to be good, and they need to be sure about it. And even if they don't end up being superstars, or top pairing people or top line players, they really want them to not fizzle out because they need help and help soon. So I have them going with Blake Fiddler. I think he's a more of a safe pick in their eyes. And yeah, moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets at number 14. Columbus Blue Jackets, they're another team like the Ducks. They've been in this position for so long and drafting high that I think they can pick whoever they want, whoever they think is still the best player available. But they also have a little bit of a positional need, and that's actually at goalie. Although they've got, excuse me, a player coming in who could be, their next starting goaltender. His name is escaping me right now. Give me one moment. Yeah, it's Jack Greaves. I don't know why his name escaped me there, but Jack Greaves. Jack Greaves at the end of this past season, he looked really good, and he could be the future for them in net. But in case they want some insurance, the best goalie in this year's draft, in my opinion, is Joshua Ravensbergen. He's got a very cool name. I love that last name. But yeah, he's the number one ranked goalie in this year's draft, according to a lot of scouts. And he could go. He could definitely go in the first round. I think he'll definitely go in the first round, and could be as high as here at number 14 for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Moving on to number 5, the Vancouver Canucks. So I think the Vancouver Canucks will end up selecting a center after they lose JT Miller this season. I think that's definitely a position that even if you want to go get short-term additions or something to kind of fill that hole while you're still trying to rebound from last season, the Vancouver Canucks, I think they're going to select a center, and I think it's going to be Cullen Potter. Potter, not the biggest guy, only 5'10", 172 pounds, but his skill is really high. And I think that he's going to jump. I think he's going to go a lot sooner than I think maybe some people might think, based on just the draft board rankings. Potter isn't, he's not a typical player. He's someone whose skill jumps out at you. And I think that's going to really impress the Canucks. And they'll be happy to take a center who could, if they develop him right, could end up being, in a top 6 center. And it could end up being Elias Pettersson and Cullen Potter before we know it. And lastly, the last pick I'm doing for this first mock draft, number 16, the Montreal Canadiens, who they got their pick from Calgary. I think it's going to be a center as well, because they have not yet been able to figure out their second line center spot. So I think they're definitely going to be drafted for a position here. They got that top line figured out. You've got Suzuki, you've got Caulfield, and then you've got your pick. Do you want Demidov to eventually be on that top line? Do you want Slavkovsky? But either way, they need a second line center, and they were hoping that, Alex Newhook, could he be it? I think the answer is no. Could Kirby Dach be it? Being a Hawks fan, I really loved Kirby Dach when he was here. I wanted him to pan out so badly, and I think he was going to, if it wasn't for injuries. And he's gotten the injury bug, so many times. I feel so bad for him. I really wish him the best in the future. But for the Montreal Canadiens, they got to do what's best for their organization. I think that's to fill their second line center spot. So I think they're going to continue to draft centers until they find one that definitely hits. But I have them going with Braden Coots. So Braden Coots, I think that he is kind of exactly what you're looking for in, a center that is responsible, plays a two-way game. He plays a mature game. He sticks up for his teammates. He's very physical. He's a lot like Braden Gallagher, and to liken him to a Montreal player. I think that the Canadiens will end up picking Coots here because he just, I think he's got a decent floor and also a decent ceiling. I think that he's the next best available center, and I think they'll be very happy to select him. So that's it. That's the first 1 through 16 of my first ever mock draft for the 2025. I think there will definitely be a little bit of fireworks at the top of the draft if the Islanders do surprise everyone and take the hometown kid. And I definitely would allow some other teams right after them to be happier with who they end up taking. But I'll probably come up with a second mock draft closer to draft time, depending on what we hear about any rumors coming out, or after the combine or anything like that. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.